Okay, let's get started. We're gonna be installing Ubuntu server, setting up Apache, and setting up virtual host with Apache as well. My host operating system is Ubuntu 24.04 and my guest operating system is Ubuntu Server 24.04. Let's get started. My hypervisor is VirtualBox. So let's create the virtual machine. Now, before we get started with the creation of the virtual machine, I would like to load our instructions. So let's go to cis106.com. Let me make this full screen real quick. Sorry about that. And let's go to Ubuntu project, final project Deliverable 2, port forwarding. This is the guide that we are going to follow. So I'm just going to put it on the side for the time being. So let's go new. Let's give our virtual machine a name. This will be Ubuntu_server. The ISO file I already downloaded. Please follow the guide to know where to find it. I'm going to skip unattended installation. For the RAM, 2 GB is sufficient, 2-core CPU, and the hard disk size, I'm going to increase it to 40, just in case I end up using this VM for something else in the future. Let's start the virtual machine. I am going to increase the view here. This should be good enough. Press enter. Almost done. Okay, select the language, English. The layout of the keyboard is fine, English. We are going to install Ubuntu server. Press enter. Wait until an IP address is acquired. It has been acquired. Let me make this a little bigger because the bottom, you cannot see the bottom over there. So maybe if I go full screen, no. Let's reduce the view to 150%. Okay, that's good. Again, spacebar, done again. Let me wait until it's finished testing the mirrors. All done. In this window over here, use the tab key on your keyboard to move around and disable LVM group. We're not gonna need that for our project. So let's disable this and move to the done section in the bottom of the installer. Press the space bar to confirm, space bar to confirm, arrow key down, continue, space bar to confirm. Your name, I'm just gonna use my initials. The server name is gonna be web server. You can name your server whatever you want. I'm just gonna call this web server for sake of simplicity. Pick a username. I'm gonna use my initials for the username, but you can pick whatever you want for your username. Just make sure you write it down because you are gonna need it later. Pick a password. I'm gonna pick something simple because this is just a demo. So you can do something as simple as 1, 2, 3. I just chose PCCC for now, but again, this is a demo. We don't need to go crazy on a complicated password. Press spacebar, done. Skip Ubuntu Pro and continue. Yes, we are going to install OpenSSH server, but we are not going to import any keys. So just move all the way down to done. Press the spacebar again, tab key, done, spacebar to complete. This will take about 15 minutes. So I'm gonna pause the video recording and I'll come back once the installation is complete and we're ready to reboot. Okay, the installation is done, so let's reboot. At this point in the guide, we have already completed step number 1, which is creating the virtual machine. We did the step number 2, which is installing Ubuntu server. And now we're gonna go to step number 3, which is installing Apache. So let's go to our virtual machine. Let's log in, type your username, then type your password. Once you log in, let's do an update. We're gonna do sudo apt update, 2 $, sudo apt upgrade, -y to answer yes to any questions that they ask us, and just let that go. It's gonna take like 2-3 minutes, not a lot, because we're using a very recent version of Ubuntu server. Okay, now let's install Apache 2. So sudo apt install Apache 2, also auto yes. Okie dokie, let's clear the screen. Now we're going to enable the firewall, so sudo ufw enable. This is the section where we are right now. There are 2 services that we're going to allow through the firewall. One is Apache, the other one is OpenSSH, because we're going to be controlling our server from our host computer. So let's do sudo ufw allow Apache. Repeat the process, and this one will be for OpenSSH. Okie dokie, this command here is to see the status of the firewall. I know the firewall is rolling, so I'm gonna continue moving on. Now let's make sure that Apache and SSH services are running. So let's do system control ctl status Apache 2, and I like to enable no pager, so that no pager if I could type, running, good, and is enabled, which is what's important too. And let's do the same thing for SSH. SSH is disabled, so let's enable it. Sudo system ctl enable SSH. Boom. And also let's start it. Now what we're gonna do, we're gonna turn off the virtual machine and we're gonna enable port forwarding. And all you have to do is copy the settings that you see over here. We're gonna forward port 22 and port 80. 22 for the SSH connection and port 80 for the web server. So let's do tel init 0 to turn the server off. And let's go to settings, networking. This is supposed to be NAT. And now we click on port forwarding. Click on the add button over here. And the rule, just resize this here. Rule 1, TCP, the host port stays empty. The host port over here, host IP stays empty. The host port will be 22. The guest IP stays empty, and the port will be 22. And again, let's do the same thing for port 8080. And then here we're gonna do port 80. Click on OK, click OK, and now we can just start our virtual machine. There's one thing we need to annotate from here, because we're gonna be using it quite a bit, I believe. Actually, we don't have to, because we're doing port forwarding. My apologies for that. We can minimize this. Open a terminal on your host computer. Again, open a terminal on your host computer. I'm using Tilix here. You can use whatever you want. Let me zoom in a little bit. This is my host computer. We're gonna connect to the server so that we can continue the setup from our local computer, so that we don't have to do all of that. Now let's do SSH -P because we're using port forwarding. As you can see over here, 2222. The username of our server. My username in my server is wrap. My initials at the IP address of my computer, which is localhost, right? Because I am forwarding that connection. So 127.0.0.1. Press enter over here, and it's gonna ask you for your key fingerprint. We're gonna type yes over here and press enter. You have to type the whole word. Type your password, and that is the password of the user in the server. Press enter, and I'm in the server right now. Yay, good. Moving on, let's go to part number 5, which is setting up virtual host. If you open a web browser and you do 127.0.0.1:8080, you should see the Apache default web page loading already from your server. We want to create virtual host now. So these are the steps over here. All you have to do is follow the steps exactly as I have laid them out in the instructions over here. So create a directory called my resume. We're gonna make it in www. This directory is on my root for the time being, so we have to use sudo. So we do sudo mkdir -p-v and var www. I'm gonna call this my resume, but if you're hosting anything else, you call it whatever you want. Type your password, and we have a directory called my resume where we're gonna host our site. Now we're gonna change the ownership of that folder so that we can freely work with that folder. And again, we do sudo change owner -R $user. We're gonna use the current user's environment variable, and the same thing for the group. var www my resume. All done. Now we're gonna change the permission to 755. If you want, you can just copy paste, because at this point you are free to copy paste. Next, we're gonna create a basic HTML site. So let's go and do sudo nano var www my resume and then index.html, right? And then here you can copy and paste this if you want, or you can just create an h1 hello world I like potatoes. And that's it. We don't really need to go crazy because we're gonna override that anyway. Oops, I thought I was in Vim for a moment. Control O to save, enter, and then Control X as in savior to exit. Okay, you can also use this command over here. It's gonna do the same thing. It's gonna create a very basic site in the same place where we were. Now that you finish this part over here, let's move along and disable our default config. And how do we do that? Again, simple. Copy, paste. And this is gonna open myresume.conf. And here, just copy this line that you see over here. This text. Paste. Oops, sorry. Copy, paste, Control O, enter, Control X to exit. Okie dokie. Let's enable my resume.conf. Let's disable the default configuration. Done. And now we need to open the apache2.config and add this line at the bottom. So copy, navigate all the way to the bottom of this document, I'm just pressing the down key over here and paste the line server name 127.0.1. Control O, enter, and Control X to exit. Now let's do a config test. This should return syntax OK unless we made a typo somewhere. Syntax OK, that means we're good. And now all we have to do is restart the Apache service. Like I said, just copy pasting from this point on. If you go into 127.0.1 colon 8080, it should load your HTML page. And any changes that you made to index.html should reflect here successfully. And at this point, that's it. That is deliverable number 2.